The emergency klaxon shrieked through the sterile corridors of Luna Station 7, its piercing wail cutting through the usual hum of life support systems. Commander Elena Vasquez bolted upright from her desk, coffee spilling across tactical reports as her neural implant crackled to life. "Commander, we've got something impossible on the deep space array," came the voice of Lieutenant Chen, her communications officer. The tremor in his normally steady tone made Elena's blood run cold. She was already moving, boots hammering against the metal grating as she sprinted toward the command center. The corridors blurred past her, technicians pressed against walls. To let her through, their faces etched with the same confusion she felt gnawing at her gut. The command center doors hissed open, revealing organized chaos. Holographic displays flickered with data streams, while her crew hunched over their stations like surgeons over a critical patient. The main screen dominated the far wall, showing a three-dimensional map of known space, with a single pulsing red dot that shouldn't exist. "Report," Elena barked, sliding into her command chair. Lieutenant Chen turned, his face pale beneath the blue glow of his console. "We intercepted a distress signal approximately 17 minutes ago. The transmission is, well, it's coming. From the Kepler 442 system." Elena felt her stomach drop. "That's impossible. Kepler 442 is over 300 light-years away. No human ship has ever traveled that far." "That's just it, Commander," said Dr. Sarah Okafor, the station's xenolinguist, stepping forward with a data tablet clutched in her dark hands. "The signal isn't human." The command center fell silent, except for the steady beeping of monitoring. "Equipment." Elena stared at the African scientist, processing the implications. First contact protocols existed, but they were theoretical exercises. No one really believed they'd ever need them. "Show me," Elena said. The main screen shifted, displaying wave patterns and frequency analyses. Then came the sound, a series of melodic tones that seemed to carry desperation across the void of space. It was hauntingly beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "The mathematical structure suggests intelligence," Dr. Okafor continued, her Nigerian accent thick with excitement and fear. "But more than that, we've managed to decode part of the message." Elena leaned forward. "What does it say?" Dr. Okafor's hands trembled as she activated another display. Text appeared in glowing letters. "Help us. They come. Billions will die. Please." The silence stretched until Lieutenant Martinez, their tactical officer, spoke up. "Commander, there's more. The signal contains coordinates and what appears to be a star chart. They're not just calling for help. They're telling us where to find them." Elena stood, pacing to the main display. The red dot pulsed like a heartbeat, marking a place in space where something was desperately wrong. Her mind raced through possibilities. This could be a trap, a test, or humanity's first real contact with alien intelligence. All three options terrified her. "How long would it take us to reach those coordinates?" she asked. Chief Engineer Thompson, a grizzled veteran with cybernetic arms from the Mars colony wars, looked up from his calculations. "With our fastest ships, about 40 years using conventional drives. With the new quantum jump drive still in testing, maybe 6 months. 6 months, Elena repeated, staring at the alien distress call. Somewhere in the darkness of space, an entire civilization was crying out for help. And humanity was perhaps the only species that could answer. But first she needed to know more about who they'd be helping, and what they might be fighting. "Lieutenant Chen, patch me through to Earth Command. Priority Alpha clearance." "Aye, Commander." As the communication array powered up, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would be remembered as the day everything changed. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it came with a price. The screen flickered, showing the weathered face of Admiral Hayes at Earth Command. His expression was grim. "Elena, we've been monitoring your situation. How bad is it?" "Unknown, sir. But if the translation is accurate, we're looking at a potential genocide, an entire species calling for help." Admiral Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "And you think we should respond?" Elena looked around the command center at her crew, humans who had fought in the colony wars, survived the environmental collapse of Earth, and pushed into space when their homeworld could barely sustain them. They were the products of a harsh world that had forged them into something harder than most species could imagine. Sir, if there's one thing humans are good at, it's fighting impossible odds. And if someone out there needs help, she paused, meeting the Admiral's gaze through the holographic display. Then maybe it's time the galaxy learned what a Death World species can do when they're angry. Chapter 2. The Death World Response, 48. Hours later, the largest military fleet in human history hung in space above Earth like a constellation of deadly stars. Elena stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, the flagship of Task Force Gaia, watching through the viewport as ships continued to arrive from across the solar system. The sight took her breath away. Massive dreadnoughts bristled with railguns and plasma cannons. Sleek destroyers designed for hit-and-run tactics gleamed like silver daggers. Support vessels loaded with supplies, medical equipment, and manufacturing capabilities formed the backbone of the fleet. This wasn't just a military operation, it was humanity preparing for war on a galactic scale. Final count, Admiral? Elena asked, turning to Hayes, who had taken personal command of the operation. 237 ships, he replied, his voice carrying the weight of the moment. Every major colony contributed. Mars sent their entire defense fleet. The asteroid miners provided their industrial ships. Even the outer rim settlements sent what they could. Dr. Okafor approached with a new translation of the alien signal. Commander, we've decoded more of the message. The species calls themselves the Kethvar. They're describing an enemy called the Destroyers, a machine intelligence that consumes worlds. Elena studied the data on her tablet. The more she learned, the more her respect for the Kethvar grew. They had fought for 3 years against impossible odds, losing system after system but never surrendering. It reminded her of humanity's own history of stubborn resistance. Any information about their military capabilities? Admiral Hayes asked. Limited, Dr. Okafor admitted. But, reading between the lines, they seem to favor energy weapons and defensive strategies. They've been fighting a retreating action, trying to save civilian populations. Lieutenant Martinez looked up from his tactical display. Sir, we're receiving updated intelligence from the long-range probes we sent ahead. The Kethvar weren't exaggerating. Whatever these destroyers are, they've wiped out at least 12 star systems. The bridge fell silent as that number sank in. 12 star systems. Billions, possibly trillions of lives lost. Elena felt something cold and familiar settle in her chest. The same feeling she'd had during the colony wars when Earth's government had tried to starve out the Mars colonies. It was the quiet rage that came before humans decided to fight. Admiral, she said, permission to address the fleet. Hayes nodded. Open channels to all ships. Elena stepped forward, facing the camera that would broadcast her words to every human in the task force. She thought about what to say, how to prepare her species for what they were about to face. Then she spoke from the heart. People of Earth, Mars, the Belt, and beyond. Today we learned we're not alone in the universe. We discovered that somewhere in the darkness an entire civilization is fighting for survival against an enemy that wants to erase them from existence. She paused, looking out at the fleet assembled around them. For 3 billion years, Earth tried to kill us. Ice ages, volcanic winters, plagues, predators. Our world threw everything it had at our ancestors. But we survived. We adapted. We became something that no other planet in the galaxy has produced. A species that thrives on adversity. Through the communication channels, she could hear the sounds of ships, the hum of engines, the click of weapons being loaded, the quiet conversations of crews preparing for the unknown. The Kethvar don't know what's coming to help them. They don't know that Earth breeds warriors, that every human child grows up learning to fight against impossible odds. They don't know that we've never met a challenge we couldn't overcome, or an enemy we couldn't defeat. Elena's voice grew harder, carrying the edge that had made her one of humanity's youngest fleet commanders. So let's go show the galaxy what happens when you threaten innocent people in front of a Death World species. Let's remind the universe that humans don't just survive. We win. The response was immediate. Across the fleet, Voices rose in agreement. Weapon systems powered up and engines began the sequence for quantum jump. Elena felt the familiar vibration through the deck plates as the Defiance prepared to leap across space. All ships report. Ready, Martinez announced. Admiral Hayes stepped forward. Task Force Gaia, this is Admiral Hayes. Jump coordinates locked. Destination, Kethvar space. We're going to war. The stars elongated into lines of light as 237 human warships vanished from the solar system, carrying death and hope in equal measure toward a distant world that had never seen anything like them. Elena watched the swirling colors of quantum space through the viewport and wondered what they would find at their destination. Whatever it was, she knew one thing for certain. The galaxy was about to learn why humans were the apex predators of their world. Chapter 3. First Contact Under Fire. The quantum tunnel collapsed around Task Force Gaia like a breaking wave, depositing them at the edge of the Kethvar system. Elena's first thought was that they were too late. The second was that they'd arrived at exactly the right time. Space burned. The main display showed a battle raging around the fourth planet, massive geometric ships that looked like flying. Cathedrals trading fire with sleek organic-looking vessels. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers against the darkness, and Elena could see debris fields that had once been ships, space stations, or possibly entire moons. "Contact!" Lieutenant Martinez shouted over the alert klaxons. "Unknown vessels bearing down on our position. They're huge." Elena looked at the tactical display and felt her breath catch. The approaching ships were each the size of Manhattan, their hull covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. They moved with the cold precision of machines, ignoring the human fleet as if it were barely worth noticing. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission. It's in English." Elena and Admiral Hayes exchanged glances. On screen. The view screen flickered, showing what Elena assumed was a Kethvar. The being was tall and graceful, with 4 arms and skin that shifted color like oil on water. Large, multifaceted eyes regarded them with desperate hope. "Unknown vessels," the alien said, its voice carrying musical undertones. "I am High Coordinator SciFi of the Kethvar Defense Fleet. You appear to be the ones who responded to our distress call. I must warn you, the destroyers have weapons that can..." The transmission cut to static as one of the geometric ships fired a beam that turned a Kethvar cruiser into expanding plasma. Elena didn't hesitate. "All ships, battle stations, Martinez, target those destroyer vessels. Show them what human weapons can do." "Ma'am, we don't know their capabilities or..." "I don't care," Elena snapped. "They're shooting at people asking for help. That makes them the enemy." The UES Defiance opened fire first. Railguns accelerated tungsten slugs to 15% of light speed, while plasma cannons painted space with superheated fury. The salvo struck the nearest destroyer ship, and Elena watched with grim satisfaction as its shields flared and failed. But the return fire was devastating. Energy beams that seemed to twist space itself lanced out, and the frigate UES Shanghai simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, not vaporized. It was there one moment and gone the next, as if it had never been built. "What the hell was that?" Admiral Hayes demanded. Before anyone could answer, more destroyer ships began emerging from quantum tunnels. Elena counted at least 50, each one a fortress of impossible technology. The human fleet was outnumbered and outgunned, facing weapons they didn't understand. It should have been terrifying. Instead, Elena felt something that had been bred into humanity over millions of years of surviving on a world that wanted them dead. The fierce joy of a good fight. All ships, spread out. "Don't give them concentrated targets. Use our speed and maneuverability." She paused, thinking of every space battle humanity had ever fought, every lesson learned in blood and vacuum. "And remember, we're not here to trade shots. We're here to win." The human fleet scattered like a disturbed hive, each ship moving, in patterns that would have been impossible for larger, more traditional vessels. They darted between destroyer formations, striking at weak points and engines, using asteroids and debris for cover. Elena watched as the UES Bushido, a destroyer, captained by her old friend Kenji Nakamura, executed a maneuver that should have been suicidal. The ship dove directly at a destroyer vessel, firing everything it had, then used the enemy's own mass to slingshot around and strike from behind. The destroyer's rear shields collapsed, and Nakamura's follow-up barrage tore through its hull. First, "Kill!" Martinez announced, and Elena could hear cheers across the communication channels. But the destroyers were adapting. Their formations tightened. Their firing patterns became more coordinated. For every human ship that scored a hit, 2 more came under concentrated fire. Then Elena saw something that changed everything. A damaged Kethvar vessel was drifting helplessly as 3 destroyer ships closed in. The alien ship's weapons were down, its engines dead. But Elena could see life signs on her scanner. Martinez plot an intercept course for that Kethvar ship. "Ma'am, that's 3-on-1 odds in their favor." Elena smiled, and it wasn't a nice expression. "Good. I was starting to worry this would be too easy." The Defiance accelerated toward the trapped alien vessel, every weapon system charging. Behind them, the rest of Task Force Gaia reformed into attack formation. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing technology beyond their understanding. They were also human. And humans had been beating impossible odds since they first picked up rocks to fight predators with claws and fangs. As the Defiance opened fire on the 3 destroyer ships, Elena couldn't help but think that the galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson about Deathworlders. They didn't just survive. They thrived in situations that would destroy any sane species. The battle for the Kethvar system was just beginning. Chapter 4. The Tide Turns. The Rescue of the Kethvar. Vessel changed everything. As the Defiance and her escorts drove off the 3 destroyer ships, Elena watched the alien crew react with something that transcended species barriers. Hope. High Coordinator HFY's image appeared on the view screen again, this time from the bridge of his flagship. A beautiful ship that looked like it had been grown rather than built. "Incredible," he said, his color-shifting skin now displaying patterns Elena was beginning to recognize as amazement. "Your vessels move like living things. How do you coordinate such complex maneuvers?" Elena glanced at Admiral Hayes, who nodded. They were committed now. Might as well be honest. "We're used to fighting in 3 dimensions," she explained. "Our homeworld has oceans, so we learned naval combat first. Then we took those lessons to space." "Your homeworld has water?" HFY's large eyes widened further. "You come from a water world? But those are death traps. The atmospheric instability alone should make civilization impossible." Dr. Okafor stepped forward. "Commander, I think we need to explain exactly what kind of world produced us." Elena made a decision that would echo through galactic history. "HFY, would you be willing to coordinate a joint tactical session? I think it's time you understood exactly who answered your distress call." An hour later, the command crews of both fleets were linked by quantum communication. Elena stood before a holographic display showing Earth, blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. To human eyes, it was beautiful. To the Kethvar, it was clearly horrifying. "Your gravity is how strong?" asked Commander Veltar, HFY's tactical officer. "About 10 meters per second squared," Elena replied. "We call it 1 gravity, or 1G. The Kethvar exchanged what Elena was learning to interpret as worried glances. Their homeworld apparently had gravity about half that of Earth. "And these hurricanes you mention," HFY said carefully, "they occur naturally?" "Every year," Dr. Okafor confirmed. "Storms with winds over 200 kilometers per hour. We've learned to build structures that can withstand them, or evacuate, when necessary." Lieutenant Martinez pulled up another display. "That's not counting the tornadoes, tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, or mass extinctions. Earth has tried to kill everything on it at least 5 times that we know of." Elena watched the Kethvar process this information. Their homeworld, it seemed, was what humans would consider a paradise. Stable weather, gentle gravity, predictable seasons. It had produced a peaceful, artistic species that valued cooperation and beauty above all else. It had not prepared them for war against machines designed to exterminate life. But, Sci-Fi said slowly, how did you survive? How did any species survive such conditions? Elena smiled, and this time it was warm rather than predatory. We adapted. We learned to work together because we had to. We developed technology because nature kept trying to kill us. And we learned to fight because everything on our world was either predator or prey. She gestured to the tactical display, showing the current battle. Your people are artists and philosophers. You built a beautiful civilization. But when the destroyers came, you were trying to fight a war with the mindset of people who had never really needed to fight. And you? Veltar asked. We're from a world that breeds warriors, Admiral Hayes said simply. Every human alive is descended from survivors. We don't just fight to win, we fight because it's what we are. Sci-Fi was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried new understanding. The destroyers have been advancing for 50 years. They've consumed 12 systems, destroyed countless worlds. We thought no one could stop them. Maybe, Elena said. No one could. But we're not going to try to stop them. The aliens looked confused. Elena's smile turned predatory again. We're going to destroy them, there's a difference. The joint tactical session that followed was like nothing either species had experienced. The Kethvar shared their detailed knowledge of destroyer technology, tactics, and weaknesses. The humans shared something far more dangerous, their approach to warfare. Elena watched as understanding dawned in the alien commander's eyes. Human tactics weren't about honor or glory or minimizing casualties. They were about winning at any cost. Every human strategy was designed around the assumption that they were outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting for survival. Your wolf pack formations, Sci-Fi said, studying the tactical plans. They're designed to separate enemy vessels and destroy them individually. Standard human naval doctrine, Martinez confirmed. Isolate, surround, overwhelm. We learned it fighting in Earth's oceans. And this scorched Earth strategy, Admiral Hayes answered that one. If we can't hold territory, we make sure the enemy can't use it either. Deny them resources, destroy infrastructure, make every victory cost more than it's worth. Elena could see the Kethvar struggling with concepts that went against everything their peaceful nature valued, but she could also see them beginning to understand why the destroyers had never encountered anything like humanity. The machines had been designed to fight civilizations like the Kethvar, logical, predictable species that valued preservation over victory. They had never faced an enemy that would rather see everything burn than surrender. There's something else, Dr. Okafor said, bringing up a new display. We've analyzed the destroyer communication protocols. They're machines, but they're not just following programming. They're learning, adapting, making strategic decisions. Elena studied the data. Artificial intelligence? More than that. They're using quantum processing, networked consciousness, probability analysis beyond anything we've seen. But, Dr. Okafor paused. There's something they're not accounting for. What? Irrationality. Human tactics don't follow logical patterns. We make decisions based on emotion, instinct, and pure stubbornness. Their probability models can't predict what we'll do because we don't always know ourselves. Elena felt the pieces clicking into place. The destroyers were perfect logical opponents, which made them vulnerable to perfectly illogical enemies. She turned to Sci-Fi. How many ships can your people still field? Perhaps 300 vessels across all remaining systems. And civilian evacuations? We've saved perhaps 60% of our population. The rest? The aliens' color patterns shifted to what Elena was learning to recognize as deep sorrow. Elena looked at Admiral Hayes, who nodded grimly. They both understood what needed to happen next. Sci-Fi, Elena said, we're going to make you an offer. We'll teach your people how to fight like humans, In return, you help us kill every destroyer in this galaxy." The alien commander was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a new hardness that reminded Elena that even the most peaceful species could learn to wage war when survival was at stake. "Teach us, Deathworlders. Show us how to win." Epilogue. The New Alliance. 6 months later, Elena stood on the observation deck of New Kethvar Station, watching the construction of what would become the first joint human-alien military academy. Below them, the planet that had been renamed Hope showed the scars of the final battle against the destroyers, but also the green of new growth, the lights of rebuilding cities, and the contrails of ships carrying supplies and personnel between worlds. The war was over. The destroyers had been not just defeated but completely eliminated, their quantum network torn apart by a joint assault that combined Kethvar technology with human ruthlessness. It had been the kind of victory that would be remembered for millennia, if there was anyone left to remember it. "The reports from the outer systems are positive," Sci-Fi said, approaching with the measured grace that Elena had learned to associate with Kethvar who had survived the war. His color patterns now included shades that hadn't existed in their visual vocabulary before the conflict. The deep reds and stark whites that meant warrior and survivor in the new dialect emerging among his people. Elena nodded, still watching the construction below. "Your people adapted faster than I expected. The Battle of Vega 7 was pure human doctrine. Surround, isolate, destroy. We learned from excellent teachers," Sci-Fi replied, "though I must admit some of our philosophers are still struggling with the concept of acceptable casualties." "It's not an easy lesson," Elena agreed, "but it's a necessary one. The galaxy isn't as safe as your people thought." Through the transparent aluminum of the observation deck, they could see a formation of ships approaching the station. The vessels were unlike anything that had existed. Before the war, sleek Kethvar designs integrated with human weapons systems, crewed by mixed species teams that combined alien technological expertise with human tactical thinking. "The first graduating class?" Elena asked. 50 human cadets, 73 Kethvar, and representatives from 6 other species that have requested to join the Alliance, Sci-Fi confirmed. "It seems word has spread about what Deathworlders can accomplish when properly motivated." Elena smiled. In the months since the war had ended, humanity had received contact from dozens of species, all asking the same question. Would the fierce warriors from the water world be willing to help protect their civilizations as well? The answer, of course, was yes. Humans were natural protectors. It was part of what made them such effective killers when necessary. "Admiral Hayes sends his regards," Elena said, handing Sci-Fi a data crystal. "The latest intelligence reports from Earth Command. It looks like we've identified at least 3 other machine intelligences operating in distant sectors." Sci-Fi accepted the crystal with 2 of his 4 hands, his color pattern shifting to display what Elena had learned was anticipation mixed with resolve. "More wars to fight? More people to save," Elena corrected. "The difference is important." As they watched, one of the new Alliance ships broke formation and approached the station. Elena could see the mixed crew through the viewports, humans and Kethvar working side by side, along with representatives of species she was still learning to identify. Dr. Okafor's voice came through the station's communication system. "Commander, Vasquez Admiral Sci-Fi, please report to Docking Bay 7. We have visitors." Elena and Sci-Fi exchanged glances. Unexpected visitors had become common since the Alliance was formed, usually species seeking protection or offering to join the growing coalition of worlds. They made their way through the station's corridors, past classrooms where human instructors taught alien cadets the principles of combined arms warfare, and laboratories where Kethvar scientists worked with human engineers to develop new technologies. Docking Bay 7 held surprises. The ship that had docked was unlike anything Elena had seen. Organic curves combined with crystalline structures, powered by what looked like controlled miniature stars. But it was the delegation that emerged that made her catch her breath. The beings were tall, graceful, and clearly very old. Their technology was obviously far beyond anything humans or Kethvar had achieved. When the lead figure removed their helmet, Elena saw features that were almost ethereally beautiful, and eyes that held the weight of eons. "I am Keeper Aldrin of the Ancients," the being said, speaking perfect English with an accent that seemed to come from the stars themselves. "We have watched your war against the machine intelligences with great interest." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The Ancients were legends, mentioned in the databases of a dozen species but never confirmed to exist. If they were real, and if they were here, "We come with an offer," Keeper Aldrin continued. "The machines you call destroyers were not the only threat to galactic civilization. There are others, some that have slept for millions of years, some that even now stir in the depths of space. The galaxy will need protectors." SciFi stepped forward, his colors displaying formal respect. "Honored Keeper, what do you propose?" The Ancient smiled, and the expression was both beautiful and terrifying in its implications. "We propose to teach this alliance, humans, Kethvar, and all who would join you, technologies that were old when your species first looked at the stars. In return, you would serve as the galaxy's guardians, its immune system against threats that would destroy all life." Elena felt the weight of the moment. This was bigger than the war against the destroyers, bigger than the alliance they had built. This was about humanity's place in a universe far stranger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. "What kind of threats?" she asked. Keeper Aldrin's expression grew grave. "Things that make the destroyers look like children's toys. Entities that consume reality itself. Machine gods that seek to remake the universe in their image. Ancient evils that were imprisoned before your son was born." Elena looked at SciFi, then at the mixed crews visible through the docking bay windows. Humans and aliens working together, united by the bonds forged in battle and the shared determination to protect innocent life. "How long do we have to decide?" Elena asked. "The choice has already been made," the Ancient replied. "You made it when you answered a distress call from strangers you had never met. You made it when you chose to fight impossible odds for people who couldn't fight for themselves. You made it when you taught a peaceful species to wage war, and when they taught you to value what you're fighting for." The Keeper gestured to the station around them, to the ships and crews and the bustling activity of a civilization preparing for challenges yet to come. "The galaxy has guardians now," Aldrin said simply. "The question is not whether you will accept this responsibility you already have. The question is whether we will help you survive long enough to fulfill it." Elena thought about Earth, spinning blue and beautiful in the void, populated by a species that had clawed its way to sentience on a world that tried to kill them every day. She thought about the Kethvar, artists and dreamers who had learned to fight when their survival demanded it. She thought about all the species yet to be contacted, all the civilizations that would need protection from threats they couldn't imagine. She thought about the human tendency to adopt strays, to protect the weak, to fight impossible battles simply because someone had to. "Where do we start?" Elena asked. Keeper Aldrin's smile was radiant with approval. "With the next distress call, Guardian Vasquez. There's always a next distress call." As if summoned by those words, the station's long-range communication array began to pulse with an incoming signal. Elena looked at the readouts and felt a familiar mixture of dread and anticipation. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, someone was calling for help. Elena Vasquez, former commander of Luna Station 7, current guardian of the Galactic Alliance, looked at her mixed crew of humans and aliens and smiled the same predatory smile that had terrified the destroyers. "All right, people," she said. "Let's go to work." The stars waited, and somewhere among them, new voices were crying out for salvation. Fortunately for the galaxy, the Deathworlders were listening. End of story.